Hello, welcome to the Hawthorn Cottage Podcast. This is episode 26. Today is Monday the 17th of September 2018. I'm Kate. You can find me on Instagram as Kate_Hawthorncottagecraft, on Ravelry as ARunnerBean, and we have a Ravelry group for the podcast called Hawthorn Cotagecraft Podcast, and there you'll find any details of giveaways, any chitter. There's an introductions thread there, and there will be show notes listed there where I'll give links to anything I talk about in the podcast. If you're new here, you're very welcome. I hope you enjoy our group, our community here, and your knitting time. If you do like what you see, please feel free to subscribe and to like the video. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It's lovely to see you again and catch up with all your knitting goings on and adventures. If you are a returning viewer, you'll realise it's been a couple of months since I last podcast. There have been various reasons for that. And within the last few weeks, I have tried to actually record an episode. And the outtakes, to say the least, they'd be embarrassing really. It hasn't really flowed. So I decided I would sit down today, I would talk about my works in progress today, but I had actually recorded my finished objects section about a week ago, and it actually worked, I think, okay. So I'm going to insert it first and then talk about what I'm working on now. So it's a little bit disjointed today. Please forgive me. I will possibly explain why that has happened towards the end of the podcast. So please bear with me today. It is a bit choppy, but hopefully you'll enjoy it anyway. I hope you have your cuppa, and we'll get on with some talking about knitting. So finished objects, there are a few. It has been quite a while since I podcast a regular episode. It was the middle of June, which means there's been quite a lot of knitting time in between. We had a glorious summer here, and I just sat and knit. My kids are fairly independent and doing their own thing on the whole, so it gave me the opportunity to knit. And I have been a productive little bee. So the first thing I am so excited to show you, finally, this was off the needles before the summer, but as you know when you see it, I haven't been able to tell you about it until now. But I can finally show you my knit for the Fibre Company. The Fibre Company very kindly asked me to take part in their beta knitting programme of their new Borrowdale collection, which released on the 1st of September. And I got to choose the pattern I wanted to knit, and they kindly sent me their yarn, which I'll talk about in a little minute. But I decided to knit the Blea Rock by Becky Baker, and I am so delighted with this. Finally, you're getting to see my finished sweater. You have seen glimpses of it. I had given teasers. If you've been on Instagram in the last few weeks, you will have seen the finished object, but up until then I'd only been able to give glimpses. This is the coziest sweater, one of the coziest I've ever knit. I love the fit of it on. As I said, it's from their Borrowdale collection, and the selection of sweaters within that and accessories are beautiful, and there will be a few more put on the needles. But this was the one I had chosen to knit. It didn't take me very long. One of the things I loved about it that caught my eye immediately was the smock stitch. I just think it looks so neat and tidy, and it was a new stitch for me, and I was a bit daunted at the start, but it actually is an incredibly easy stitch, and I really love it. I love the high and low hem with a little split. It's just a little different from anything I've knit before. I love the polo neck. The sleeves are that little bit wider, so this is very much a layering piece. It's lovely with a white shirt under it or a long sleeve t-shirt. and I am delighted. It is knit. The yarn is also from their new selection of yarn called Lower, and Lower is 100% Romney lamb's wool, and it is the softest yarn. It is really, this is such a squishy sweater, and I'm over the moon with it. Just bringing any notes I've taken. I dropped a needle size from the pattern to get gauge, so I knit this in a 3.75. The yarn is a double knit weight. You can see the little halo on it, and the colourway that I used was Cam, which is appropriate at the moment. I need a little bit of that in my life. So I just love this. It's like wearing a hug. And this is going to be one of my Rhinebeck sweaters. I'm going to wear this hopefully over the Rhinebeck weekend. So if you haven't seen the new Borrowdale collection from the Fibre Company, you should go and look it up. There are hashtags that I'll put along the bottom here that'll bring you to the collection. The Fibre Colour and the TFC Borrowdale, I think is the other one, but I'll put them along the bottom, and you can see the other projects that have been knit up. Thank you so much to the Fibre Company for letting me knit this. I really enjoyed it, and I hope if you decide to knit it too that you'll really enjoy it. So that was finished object number 1. The Blea Rock by Becky Baker for the Fibre Company. The second finished object, and you'll say at last, is also one of the sweaters that I think is going to be very well worn through this autumn and winter, and that is my little Twigs sweater. This pattern is by Melody Hoffman, Bee Mandarins, and I began knitting this the weekend of Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year in March, and I had been working away on it, and then other projects got in the way, test knits and things, and it kept getting put down. But it is finally done, and again I'll insert some photographs of it on. The wool, the yarn that I knitted in was Durarum Gilead. Is it Durarum Natura Gilead? And it's 100% wool, and it's a worsted weight yarn. Again, another cozy sweater, and the colourway is Foray. Beautiful, rich forest green. It's very hard in this light to get it exactly. It's quite close. So I knit the body and the sleeves of this sweater on a 5mm needle, which is US 8, and I knit the cuffs because it just was a bit loose around the cuff for me on a 3.75mm, which is a US 5. And if you remember from episodes back, I also knit the sleeves for the first time on a 12-inch cable, which worked really well. It meant that I didn't get my ladder, and the sleeves knit down very quickly on the 12-inch cable. I have since tried it on another sweater and it didn't work for me as well. I think it's sometimes just the yarn that you're using, maybe the speed at which you want to work at, but certainly for this sweater it worked very well. The pattern at the top is beautiful. I was a wee bit worried about the yoke and the tension because of the slip stitches. I was a wee bit worried it was going to be too tight, and I think there is a suggestion on the pattern that you can go up a needle size for the yoke. I worked on, and once it has blocked, it's been fine. There's no issue at all with it in fit. I really love the fit of it. Again, it's my colour. I love green, as you can see. It's beautiful with jeans and brown boots, and it's just a sweater for this time of year for me. It's a very autumnal colour in my mind. So I love this sweater. It's a very well written pattern. If you haven't seen any of Melody's patterns before, you should go and have a look. They're very clearly set out, and again, it's another sweater that will be well loved and used over the winter. So that was finished object number 2. Another sweater that has been on the go for quite a while. Again, I think, was this cast on around Edinburgh? I'm not sure. If you have seen the little mini episode that I did in August, beginning of August, about Yarn Folk Festival of Wool, you will have seen this. But if not, it's my Edie t-shirt. Now, it's been folded quite badly. This has been worn quite a lot. It's not in the pristine shape that maybe the other ones are in, but it's a well worn, well loved sweater already. T-shirt, slow, short sleeves, and I knit this in Tuscan knits. I was very lucky last year to get to Indie Untangled and to see Tuscan knits and Maria's beautiful wool, and this is her Witchwood colourway, which is a green, grey, it's quite dark shades. There's like a silver grey in it, which is beautiful. And this is a 75%, 25% superwash BFL, Blueface Leicester, and nylon in a fingering weight. And the pattern is Edie by Isabel Kramer. So this pattern I have enjoyed. It was knit top down, some short row shaping at the top. Once you get the top part done and joined in the round, it's a really straight, not that it's complicated at the top, but certainly once you get it all joined at the underarm, it's a very, very speedy, straightforward knit because there's no shaping. There's a little bit of texture just to break the stockinette, if you can see it. Just every so often down the body of it. Edge, there's a wee tiny bit of hem which makes it curl, and I quite like the look of it. It's quite an informal look, and it's the same round the edges of the sleeves. And the neckline, there is a possibility in the pattern of doing a more finished neckline or leaving it as it was, and I thought for a change I would leave it as it was. And I really, really like it. As I said, if you see the Yarn Folk mini episode, you'll see it on there, but again, I'll insert photographs. Just so that you get a better look. I did, it took very little yarn. It took about, I think it was about a skein and a half, so I haven't weighed it. About 700 grams, 600 and something grams, that could be completely off, but it didn't take a lot. It didn't use full two skeins. I have quite a lot of the second skein left. And I was going to alternate skeins. And I'd started by alternating skeins. But I didn't like the line it was leaving. I can't even remember now where it was. So I did risk it. And just took it a skein at a time. And I only had to join into the second skein somewhere down here. And I don't think there's a difference. Excuse the wrinkles. I don't think there's a difference in it. I was lucky, I suppose, because in a hand-dyed skein, there can be just subtle variations. But I didn't alternate. I don't know, I don't seem to be able to do that particularly neatly. I don't like the line that it leaves. But love knitting this. As I said, it's a straightforward pattern. I don't know if I said I knit it in a 3.5mm, which is a US 4. So that was number 3. Then I decided I had to knit another sweater for Rhinebeck. Rhinebeck is now 5 weeks away, just over 5 weeks away, and I'm getting very excited about that. I'm really, really looking forward to the break away. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again. I have missed everybody like crazy. I'm very much looking forward to getting back to Ottawa and meeting up with my pals there and spending a wee bit of time there on either side of the Rhinebeck Festival. But I wanted another sweater for the festival weekend, and last year I had knit The Artichoke French by Laura Nelkin from this book, The Rhinebeck Sweater, and I decided I wanted to knit another sweater out of it. Now, I have stash here, and I wanted to use stash. I didn't want to buy more yarn. I have enough there that I really could knit umpteen sweaters, but I didn't particularly want to buy anything new. The problem was that a lot of the sweaters here weren't in the weights of yarn that I have there, or enough. But over the summer, I was very kindly gifted some Let Lopey, and enough for a sweater, and then some. I have plenty left, and that was perfect. I was able to use my Let Lopey plus a skein of yarn that I had in stash that I'd got fairly recently, again as a gift. So it was all systems go. I decided that I would knit, I wanted a wee bit of colour work, so I decided I would knit this sweater, which is the Duchess, named after the Duchess Fairgrounds. It's the name of the fairgrounds that Rhinebeck takes place in, and it's by Cheryl Burke. And I just wanted a nice casual sweater, nice and loose, and who knows if I'll be able to wear any of these sweaters this year. Last year certainly wasn't particularly sweater weather, but I wore them anyway, and I'm going to wear them again this year. If the sun's baking the ground, I'm still going to wear them. So I decided I would knit this in Let Lopey. And this is what I came up with. This is one of the quickest knits I have ever done. It literally raced off the needles. And this is my Duchess sweater. And I have fallen madly in love with Let Lopey. It is amazing yarn. This is Let Lopey shade 0085 Oatmeal. And I had a skein of yarn that I had got in my goodie bag at Woolen in May in Dublin, and it is Studio Donegal, and what a perfect autumn colour, and it's simply orange, and it's 5230, and it used very little of it. Actually, it used about half a skein, and both of these are ARun weight. And again, this is it's very wide necked, but it's a very casual, comfy sweater. I do like fitted. I like fitted sweaters, but most of the sweaters I've knit for this year are just all about comfort. It's all about wearing a hug. And I knit this in a 4mm, which is a US 6, which is a size smaller than the recommended. I knit the 3rd size in the sweater, and to get gauge, I had to drop to a 4mm. But it's given me a really beautiful fabric that I love. It's bottom up. Then you knit the sleeves, and then you join in the round to knit the colourwork yoke. And it's just a really simple, straightforward pattern. I think it looks really effective. I'm looking forward again to wearing this. I'm looking forward to standing on the hill chatting to everybody, and I'm looking forward especially to getting up the other hill to my apple cider donuts and coffee, and I can just imagine standing about wearing this. So that's the sweaters. 4 in all that got finished over the summer for you to see. Not just sweaters that have been knit, I have a few other smaller finished objects. I have knit a hat, and this is it. I love this. This is my, I have to call it my Canadian hat, my Ottawa hat, because the pattern is written by a Canadian. Now, I don't think she's from Ottawa, but a Canadian. The yarn is from Ottawa, the pom-pom is from Ottawa, and it's just a lovely little hat. I'll try and put it on. I'm not very good at modelling hats. There we go. My Ottawa hat. So the pattern is Stones on the Beach by Jennifer Knight, and I have named my pattern on Ravelry as Remick, and I hope I've pronounced that right, Remick Rapids. When I was there last autumn, Holly brought me down to a spot on the Ottawa River that is a series of stone sculptures, and the artist has now slipped my mind. Is he John Soprano? I'll put it up on the bottom. And he has stone sculptures built on the river bank. So Stones on the Beach became the Remick Rapids hat, and it almost looks a bit like that. The yarn that I used is Roots and Rain yarn, and Donna is the dyer behind that, and she is from Ottawa. I met her in Wabi-Sabi, the yarn shop there, but she naturally dyes her yarn and she uses rainwater for it, so it's a really natural process she uses to dye her yarn, and the colour is beautiful. The colourway of this, oh, did I write down the colourway? I don't think I did. It's her Monsoon sock base, which is 80% merino and 20% nylon. I didn't write down the name of the colourway. It was this beautiful shade of pink. And it's finished off with a beautiful pom-pom that my friend Holly, who is Mull Hall on Instagram, made and gifted to me when I was there. So it's a 100% Canadian project, and I'm looking forward to wearing that when I'm back now in 5 weeks' time. So a hat, very simple, 3mm needle, which is a US 2.5, and that is ready for wearing. So let me see, that's sweaters, it's my hat, socks. There had to be socks finished over the summer. I think you had seen these in progress. These are my Felice socks. Felice is a yarn range by Knit Picks. I'm sure everybody knows that now, and it's really, really soft yarn, but I find it quite hard wearing, surprisingly, for how soft it is. It's superwash merino nylon. But this is their Lost Lakes colourway. I worked these both at the same time, and it's just a simple slip stitch pattern. And I did my Afterthought heel and toe. And 64 stitches. It's my usual 64 stitches, 2.5mm, which is US 1.5 needle. So that's my Lost Lakes socks. I think I've knit them slightly short in the foot, but I think with wear they'll stretch. With the exception of my mum, everybody else has bigger feet than me. And my mum, I no longer gift handmade socks to, because she's of the generation where when you give her something like that as a gift, and she is a knitter, which is surprising, they're too good to wear. So she keeps them in a drawer and doesn't wear them because they're too good, and I would rather they were worn. So I will probably wear these and stretch them to fit. But it's only a row or two, so it's not too bad. So that was one pair of socks. The second and last pair of socks that I finished over the summer were my Miss Lilly P Goes on Tour, and you haven't seen these at all because I started these in July. My daughter turned 18 in July, and as a family holiday and as a gift for her, we went to Disneyland Paris for the first time. We've been to Disneyland in Florida, but we decided to stay closer to home this time. I went to Disneyland Paris and I needed sock knitting, and I also was wanting to knit socks for going away in 5 weeks time. So I cast these on, and I called them Miss Lilly P Goes on Tour because the yarn that I've used is the Miss Lilly P colourway from Legacy Fibre Arts, and I love this. I think it is really bright and cheerful. The yarn came with this as the main skein, and then this as the contrast, and it came with a little mini skein. So it is their their steel toes base, sorry, which is 75-25 superwash merino nylon. And the pattern that I knit is from the Crazy Sock Lady from Kay, and it's Rhinebeck Roomies. So again, they're very appropriate for their upcoming trip. And it's a lovely, simple, straightforward stitch that once you get into the flow of it is quite mindless, and there's not an awful lot of watching, which is great because it's not a vanilla sock. And for a change, and as according to the pattern, it's a heel flap and gusset. And I've really enjoyed getting back into the heel flap and gusset, and I have another pair of socks in the needles, again by the Crazy Sock Lady, that I'll show you later, and it's a heel flap and gusset, and I'm really enjoying it. It's slowing me down, and at the minute I'm enjoying that. But it's 64 stitches, 2x2 rib, heel flap and gusset, and then the rounded toe. I'm really enjoying the fact that I've called them Miss Lilly P Goes on Tour, because she has been on tour. Miss Lilly P is Chelsea's daughter and Sue's granddaughter from Legacy Fibre Arts, but she's gone on tour all summer. She started in Paris, she's been round Ireland, jaunting about different places, and she's for Canada in a few weeks time, and then for Rhinebeck, where she will meet back up with her makers. So really, really pleased with these. Those were the main projects. I have one other little tiny project that I finished and I'm wearing it, and it's this bracelet. I've had this kit since last October again, and I'm really sorry because Rhinebeck's got mentioned a lot on this episode. It's coming up, I'm getting excited, reliving memories, looking forward to making new ones. But this was given to me, it was a kit called Fetish by Laura Nelkin. This was what I've left. And it's on Ravelry. And Laura very kindly gave me the little kit when I was there, and I'd put off knitting it simply because it was beaded, and I've never ever beaded anything before. And to me that just sounded like such a complicated thing to do. But I literally took the bull by the horns. I got she guides you through it all, and I got the beads set up months ago and then didn't touch it again because I thought it was going to be too complicated. As soon as I started, I thought, what on earth was I worried about? I had this done in a day. It was the quickest little knit, and I've enjoyed wearing it, and it always brings comment when I do wear it. So that is Fetish by Laura Nelkin, and as I said, it is on Ravelry. So that's all the finished objects. There's very little on the needles at the minute. I have a couple of projects which I'll show you, but I'm just pleased to be able to show you all the things that I've finished, and hopefully the next time you'll not get bombarded with finished objects quite as much. But I'm pleased with them and looking forward to wearing them. What I'm working on, I'm actually only working on 2 things at the moment. I had, as you can see, such a lot of things on the needles for a while there, and now I'm down to 2 that I'm working fairly consistently on. The main one is a little bit of a change from all those heavyweight sweaters, I'm working on a fingering weight project. And if you remember from my episode on Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year, and a little bit before that, I had got to work a little bit with Blacker Yarns, one of their recent new releases, which was a breeds specific yarn called Jacob. And I had got to play a little bit with that before Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and then when I went there, it was really one of the main things I wanted to get. And I had got this particular colourway, and it's the pale green marlstone, so it's a grey-green colour. I had taken pictures of it on Instagram, and the colour doesn't really show up particularly well on my Instagram photographs, but that's a better representation. And this is a worsted spun 4-ply yarn. And as per usual, usually now when I shop for yarn, I have a project in mind, and the project that I wanted to knit was in number 4 of the Lina magazine, so issue 4, which was this one. And the project I decided to knit was this one, and I'll insert better photographs hopefully of it here. But this is the Kate cardigan, which I thought was appropriate, by Libby Johnson, who has Truly Myrtle podcast and designs. And I have been really champing at the bit to get it cast on, but knew I had to finish all those other sweaters first. And I have started this, and because it's 4-ply, it's definitely a slower knit than the rest, but I've got on quite well with it, and I'm really pleased with how it's turning out. It's a tangle of yarns at the moment. So it's knit in one piece, it's knit from the top down, and mainly stockinette, as you can see. But down, there's a panel down at each side of the front that is lace. But it's a very simple lace. And I'm really enjoying this. I'm knitting it in 3mm needles, my Haya sharps. And I need the Haya sharps for the lacy bit, but with this, my style of knitting, I end up with knitting injuries, and I've pierced a hole in my finger, and the needle always finds it. And every time I knit with these needles, it finds the same hole, which is painful. Anyway, labour of love. As I found when I was knitting my gingerbread sweater, I don't know if other designers use the same techniques, and I can't really go into the techniques because it's a paid for pattern. But I always find the beginning of Libby Johnson's patterns, strange isn't the right word, they're different. And when I initially look at the pattern, it looks quite complicated, but it's not actually complicated. If you take it a stitch at a time and an instruction at a time and just do exactly what it says, it all works out, and it actually gives a really lovely shaped shoulder and a really lovely connection of the two pieces. Initial reading to me, it confuses me, and I have to read it again. But it simply is following exactly what it says in the instructions, and if you trust the designer and trust the instructions that they have given, then it always works out quite easily, and I've built it up in my head. But I love the way it has turned out now that I've got going on it. Halfway down, I think I've 12 inches to knit from the underarm, and I think I'm about 6 inches down. And this is just a really enjoyable knit. It has forced me to slow down, and at the moment I'm really enjoying that. I love this yarn. It is toothy enough but soft. It's going to drape beautifully. I think it's going to be a really light, easy to wear cardigan. and I think it'll get a lot of wear. But the yarn is beautiful to work with. As I said, it's quite toothy, but not rough or not, I don't think it's itchy in any way. It's just a really beautiful yarn to use. So that is Blacker Yarns and their breeds, their Jacob breed. That's the main thing I have on the needles. The other thing I have is a pair of socks. And this pair of socks I started again for the upcoming trip to Rhinebeck. And again, it's a Crazy Sock Lady design pattern. And this one is on the hill, based on the hill at Rhinebeck. So I wanted to knit these. I wanted to knit them in an autumnal colour, and I also wanted to use some of the yarn that I had bought last year. So these socks are being knit in this yarn. Let's blow it out a wee bit. It's coming out quite pinky red there. It's like a deep, that's better. And this is by the Georgian Bay Fibre Company, and I bought this yarn in Wabi Sabi in Ottawa last year. It's a hand-dyed yarn from Parry Sound in Ontario, and this is their Bayfield sock base, which is 80% superwash blue-faced Leicester and 20% nylon, and the colourway is oak leaf, so it's very appropriate. And this is the pattern, and I think this is the first pair, of proper cables that I've done in a sock. I've knit cables before, but just not in a sock. I've knit mock cables, but this one is cabled, and it's the pattern's simply down the front of it, and the back a stocking stitch, which is nice. I don't think I've knit other cabled socks. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And it's a heel flap and gusset again, which I'm really enjoying, and I'm starting down the foot. Again, I think because they're cabled, there's a little bit more thought. They're taking a wee bit longer, but again, I'm enjoying that. I think I will have to cast on a pair of just plain vanilla socks for the car, because I've nothing for there at the moment. Well, I do need to finish my knitscape socks, and I did work on them over the weekend, but not enough to show you. Anyway, this is the On the Hill sock by Crazy Sock Lady Kay Litton, and I love her patterns. I think they're straightforward, but they're effective. There's a little bit of detail, and I'm really enjoying this one. So hopefully, it's 4 weeks today until I travel. So hopefully I'll have them both finished and ready to wear when I'm on the hill on the Saturday of Rhinebeck. That is my intention. I just have to keep working away. And that is what I have been working on. It's been as simple as that. A lot of things finished. Those are the 2 active projects at the moment. At the very beginning of the episode, I alluded to why I haven't been podcasting in the last couple of months. And this is something I don't normally do on my podcast. So if this doesn't interest you, all the knitting talk's over. Feel free just to skip through this bit. I don't normally talk about personal things in any great detail here, but I feel that an explanation of sorts is needed at the moment. So if you're interested, stay tuned. It has been a couple of months. It was mid-June when I last recorded a full episode, and I have really struggled to sit down and record. I love my podcast. I love the community that is built up here. And this is nothing actually to do with the podcast, the reason I didn't podcast. Some of you may know that I struggle occasionally with depression, and it's a subject that sometimes gets brushed under the carpet by a lot of people. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. I have never hidden the fact that I have depression or have suffered from depression in the past, but it's not something I feel that this is normally the forum for me. You know, it's not the place where I would normally feel comfortable talking about it. I initially developed depression postnatally when my first child was born, and suffered very severely from it for a couple of years. And on the whole, the last a lot of years, 14, 15 years, haven't been too bad. I do suffer from bouts of depression. I don't think, in my experience, once you've had it, it totally goes away. It's always there. It's just I know now the signs and I can attack them earlier. But on the whole, it hasn't been too bad. January and February of every year is never good, but never too bad. But this year has been different. There have been no events. There's been nothing wrong. There are no major events taking place in my life that have triggered this. So please don't be worrying about that. Everything is normal here. But this past year has progressively got worse, and it really set in at the beginning of the year. And I really noticed it starting to take hold from the beginning of March. And from March on, it has been a struggle. Being able to kind of push it down until the summer, and in the summer it really reared its head. And I really have struggled over the summer. And in the last couple of weeks, it has hit me quite badly. I mentioned it on Instagram, and I had put up a post, and that's the reason that I'm addressing it here. I had put up a post on Instagram, I think it was the beginning of last week, just to say that to bear with me, please, because I'm under a bit of a cloud and I am really fighting it. I'm employing all the methods that I know how to get out of it, and certainly there are thankfully more good days now than there were bad days, and I'm actually, I think because I've addressed it, starting to deal with it and see light at the end of the tunnel again. But it is something I've had to really consciously do, which has meant that I have been very intermittent here, because it's just like everything else. It's sometimes just a struggle to get through a day, and to add extra pressures, and not that this is a pressure, but I think you know what I mean, an extra thing onto the list. It just meant that it got pushed out of the way. And then the longer you leave it, the harder it gets. Anyway, things are on the up. I'm actively doing things that are helping me. One of the things I actually did over the weekend was I closed my iPad and put it away, which is very rare. I'm attached to my iPad, I'm attached to my phone, I'm constantly checking Instagram, I'm constantly looking at things. And it's funny, at the very beginning of the year, I took on my word, and my word was balance. And that is something I haven't achieved all year. I'm now trying to write that. I let it go too far. But it's very strange. I spent a weekend away from social media completely. And I woke up this morning feeling recharged. Just a couple of days, and I felt so much better. I wasn't attached to it over the weekend. I actually was very productive over the weekend, but it was doing things at my own pace and not feeling, for want of a better word, pressure. So that's why really over the last few months it has been quiet, it's been intermittent, there have been weeks on end when there's been no podcast. And maybe if you've seen me, it might explain some weird behaviour, or maybe that's just normal. Anyway, that's where I'm at. It has got, as I say, that it's going to get better. It is going to get better. I know that it will get better. But that's where I'm at the moment. I'm really looking forward to things coming up now in the autumn and coming up towards Christmas, and that always gives me a lift and a bit of a cheer. So thank you if you have stuck by me, and thank you for all the messages of support that I got last week on Instagram. It really blew me away, and there was one person in particular and she knows who she is, who just sent me a little message every day, and that, just to see how I was, and that, just any of the messages that I got, it meant the world. Knowing that you were there and that you had my back. So thank you so much for supporting me, for supporting the podcast, and for continuing to come back and hear me ramble, because that's what I tend to do about my knitting. That's really all there is for this episode, disjointed as it was, and I hope to see you very soon. Less gap this time, and over the next few weeks, enjoy your knitting.